Welcome to the Fire Chat podcast. Today on the show, I have Mr. Todd Bayer, founder of the Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club and a lot of other companies and stuff over the years. So, Todd, it's great to have you on the show, man.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, and I've once upon a time, I was on your show back in the day a couple times, and that was kind of the dipping my toe in that made me go, maybe I'll do this someday.
It's funny because when we started I originally it was a radio show. Really, It was on NBC News Radio, Inland Empire, KCAA. We started it there, and the idea of even doing a radio show was kind of ridiculous at the time. Thinking who's going to listen to this?
Yeah.
But I guess the radio show, the station itself, actually had pretty good reach. I mean, KCAA can reach millions of people because of its broadcast power and everything. So, and it was on 3 stations, 2 AMs and 1 FM. So, when we were running the club, we'd get people showing up and saying, I was listening to some guy on the radio the other day, and I'm like, oh, that guy was me, by the way. But and we were just promoting the club. Really, that's all we used the radio show for, was just to promote the club, get more people to come. And, because not everybody's on meetup.com. Not everybody was, finding us through Google or anything like that. So we, I guess the radio turned out to bring some pretty good people in. And there's a few people I can think of off the top of my head that are still coming to the club on a regular basis that came through the radio show originally. Really? So, Yeah,
that's cool. That's cool. I give you props because doing this, we started out when I first started, the podcast was, our goal was 1 a week.
Yeah.
And man, just trying to get it enough to keep that going. We weren't and we're obviously not doing it live, we're just recording.
Yeah.
Which is pros and cons. We get to kind of, if there's a stumble or something, or somebody needs to step away for a second, we can kind of edit stuff. It doesn't have to be, and we could go a little bit longer if we want.
Right.
I remember on KCAA, it was if you're in the middle of something and there was 27 seconds left, that was it.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Yeah, you're capped at, I think we were 50 minutes and some, maybe 52 minutes, depending on how many commercials were on before the show started. But it's live. So, if you screw up.
Exactly. So
and I screwed up just about every single time. So
no, you did great. I always I always liked it. That, like I said, it's I don't know if I quite go to inspired. I had seen a lot of podcasts over the years, but it definitely was something I was I take that format and we still have, what was the name of the show again?
The Flip Flop Investor Show.
Okay. So
coming back, actually, it's going to be coming back pretty soon.
Good. So we, we still have some of the older episodes, up on the club's YouTube, I think.
Okay.
It's on there somewhere.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of good, there's a lot of great information on there still. It's, some of, obviously current events might be a little bit dated, but,
right.
As far as people's journeys and what they went through and, or different real estate topics, all still relevant. So.
It was always challenging to find guests because I wanted new people that, could kind of share their story on why they got into real estate investing. I like to bring people on that maybe had done their first deal and talk a little bit about that. That was kind of what I really like to talk about. But oftentimes the only people I could actually get to come on, because they were, a lot of new people were scared to come on,
exactly.
but the, the seasoned guys were willing to come on, at the drop of a hat. I could call Jim Keller, Andy Teasley, or,
let's go.
Any one of the mentors we used to have, Matt Tandy, I could call any one of them at any moment and be like, hey, I don't have a guest for today's show. Can you make it? And they'd be like, yeah, I'll be there,
Yeah.
So we ended up towards the end of the show. I noticed that I sort of had the same 6 people on rotation that were just coming on a regular basis, but it was good. I was kind of fearing at the end there that nobody was really giving me any new information. And I wasn't sure what the audience engagement was like, because it was a radio show and you don't get that.
Yeah, it's hard. You don't get your analytics or anything like that. Like YouTube gives me, I know which ones are, performing better and
right.
And
you can even get demographic information. There's all kinds of stuff you can get with posting it online in a podcast format, and even including Apple Podcasts and all that other stuff. But when you're doing the radio, the best measure for how many people are listening is if you do a call-in episode. If you get a call-in, that represents 1,000 people actively listening to the show. Is basically what they told me. So if you get 4 people calling in, you have 4,000 active listeners. Which is kind of low for radio, because if it has the reach of 1 million plus people in the San Bernardino, Riverside, Inland Empire area, basically, only getting that number of people calling in is kind of low. So
but that's still, I mean, that's, if you just went randomly live on YouTube and tried to have a call-in thing, you'd probably, like, just starting out, you probably wouldn't get a call.
Yeah,
you
like
you definitely don't have 4,000 people watching you. So, I mean, that reach is, terrestrial radio is still a big reach. There's a lot of, not everybody's on YouTube, or Spotify or whatever, wherever you're listening to this on.
And I was an early adopter of the technology where I could have, an MP3 player back in the, the late 90s, an MP3 player. I could have that connected to my car. I had, an auxiliary cable that I actually wired into the back of the head unit on the car, because I wanted to be able to listen to my own music without commercials. So I was an early adopter.
The tape deck one where you
then
with the
get your Discman plugged in.
With your CD on the anti-skip thing, the little platform that used to go on there. Yeah. That was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But hey, at least you owned it. They couldn't just delete it off Spotify, the next day. So that's a whole nother conversation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but no, it's funny that you said, about getting guests on, because, I think I had similar ideas with this, where I wanted to kind of get, there's tons of podcasts out there of the high level guys and the higher level real estate stuff. And, these multi-millionaires coming on and, telling them how they, which is great. I just feel like there's already a lot of those.
Yeah.
So I really was kind of like, I didn't know that with the flip and flop. Was it? Sorry, flip flop investor.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what you were targeting. Because that's what we basically started out here.
Yeah.
I really wanted to get like a more personal side, the people that had recently just gotten into it or were thinking about getting into it, why they wanted to get into it. The more, and not just the real estate side, just the financial independence side of why this kind of called to them, I guess.
And that tended to be the biggest reason, that people got into it in the first place was that, they, number one, they saw something, some kind of thing kind of drew them in. Sometimes it was like a book like Rich Dad, Poor Dad was really common. But a lot of times now you're hearing people, they caught something on YouTube or it was a Facebook ad. They saw Grant Cardone or somebody, somebody drew them in. And once you kind of get the real estate bug, like it's hard to get it out of your head because, the potential was massive, right? And the effort seems low, it seems like you could do this in your free time.
Yeah.
And so I think
at least stumble into it.
Yeah, you kind of do. And I think a lot of people, they get involved and, they find out eventually that it's not as easy as just, there's just deals everywhere. I could just, call the local wholesaler that's got his,
They're not necessarily good.
Right, exactly, yeah. Most of those deals aren't ones you'd want to buy, but, but the thing is they got the bug. And once they have that bug, they start, hating on the traditional investments, like your mutual funds and your stocks and stuff like that, which, there's plenty of people that do just fine investing in that way. But me personally, I don't. I've not had much success.
And
ever.
Most people that do that are I feel like are usually like high earners anyways. They're already making a lot of money. Yeah. And so they see those returns. Or they have the the disposable income to really do something with it.
Sure. I think a lot of it's just luck, and it's it's a massive casino essentially, the stock market, in my opinion, and you're basically just gambling if you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's almost impossible. I mean, I because we talk about this and just some of the guests on the podcast and the club, and I think we all started out, or if you didn't initially come into real estate right off the bat. You definitely, you toyed around with stocks. You probably toyed around with crypto or, Forex or, one of those drop shipping, Amazon stores, whatever, throughout your journey before you kind of got into real estate. And yeah, I mean, the stock, you're competing against, yes, Zillow has an algorithm. Yes, like there's certain algorithms out there for real estate, but you're not competing against the algorithm right this second, maybe in the future, but in real estate, but in stocks, man, that stuff's just, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's got to be a high percentage of trades that are just computers.
Yeah, I'm sure they're
thinking a lot faster than you are.
Well, for sure, there's the market maker, there's the people involved in the stock market, and they're responsible for all the buy and sell of all the trades for particular, and usually they're banks. Chase has this massive market maker in the stock market, and they, they're the ones making the money every single trade. There's a spread for them, and they get it every single time. It's for that, like for me, I'm like, man, I want to be a market maker. If I'm, same thing. It's like I'd like to own the casino. You know what I mean? Like, like be the house, because the house always wins. Yeah. So at least in real estate, you can go buy an apartment building and cash flow on it. And your cash flow today is going to be the lowest amount of cash flow you're ever getting on it. Yeah. It's just going to, especially in California, you get the appreciation over time. You get that cash flow coming in, and you also get the benefits of having the depreciation, other tax benefits. You can do cost segregation. There's all kinds of ways to there's all kinds of ways to just earn a good living having apartments, or any kind of real estate investments. And when you really talk about financial freedom, you could be the house, literally. You're the evil landlord, so to speak. You watch all these movies, and it's always the landlord is the biggest a-hole in the group, and but
I try not to be.
Yeah, exactly. You could be a good landlord. A lot of people just need a good place to live, and there's a lot of people out there that actually don't want to own a home. They don't want that responsibility, and they like having all the landscaping, all the other things, the maintenance of the property. They like all that being handled by
multiple friends. They have a lot of friends that want to own a house, and then a lot of friends that absolutely have no interest. They don't want to, like you said, they don't want to deal with the landscaping, the $4,000 HVAC repair, or for the AC compressor goes out, or the roof leaks or whatever. Yeah, it's a lot of freaking work having a house, multiple houses.
Yeah, exactly. Add houses, you just compound that over.
So there's definitely we get this negative persona as landlords or housing providers, or I saw one today. I guess they passed a bunch of laws here in California. I think it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, a few months ago, where they were kind of limiting security deposits, and some of it was like, I could kind of see that, but it also, restricted some things we could do to help people get into houses. Now if somebody's right on that line of the requirements, and we'd say or they're just below it, and be like, okay, maybe we'll let you, do two months of security deposits, and we'll let the poor credit slide for now. Yeah. It'll make me feel better, that you're, now we can't do that. No. But there's another one coming down that, no more pet restrictions. So we all have to accept, every housing provider has to accept pets. You can't have it as part of your application. They have to tell you once, they have 72 hours to tell you once you accept them as a resident. And you can't charge any pet fees, and you can't charge an extra deposit. And I was reading that the Humane Society is a big backer of this. Yeah, and I could see the Humane Society's point of view that you got to put down tens of thousands of dogs every year. Sure, the people that, because they can't find a place to live with the dog. I get that part, and it's sad. But what's that going to do now? Now everybody, I had that as part of my I don't want to say a niche. I don't think it's all that much of a niche, but I took pride that I offered all my units as pet friendly. Yeah, but I'm very strict with it. Yeah, of course. So
well, I've been in tons of homes that are the victim of poor pet ownership. Yeah. Where these people had 1,000 cats or like 10 dogs, and the houses are just destroyed. Yep. And oftentimes, like the dogs, for example, I remember one, they would all urinate right by the sliding glass door from the kitchen to the backyard, and that metal that was on the bottom part of the sliding door was just eroded away from dog urine, because it is acidic, and it does cause damage over time. Mm-hmm. But it's funny because I'm sort of and tonight, for anybody, I don't know if you know what date this is coming out, but tonight the club's going to have John Schaub here, and John Schaub, he actually kind of changed my mind on pets for the houses, and he kind of wants the tenant to move in, put as many holes in the walls as you can, put up a bunch of pictures. I want you to make this your home, because I want you to stay forever. I don't want to have to change tenants every year.
And people with pets are more likely to stay.
Exactly. Yeah. And
but will they continue to be that way if they can take the pet anywhere?
Well, be a great landlord. At the end of the day, you're still running a business, and your customer is your tenant. So, whatever you can do to make the tenant experience better, you should be doing that as a landlord. It's just,
absolutely.
It's basic business. You got to keep your customers happy. You know, you can't be the soup Nazi. You know,
exactly. Well, and that's where like my pet policy came from because I had 2 pit bulls for 14 years,
which are hard to get a place for.
Yeah, I got them as I was a tenant. I got them. Didn't tell my landlord.
Do we ever tell our landlords about our pets?
Yeah, but eventually I did disclose one when I did disclose one, but I got a second one that I didn't disclose, and you know he didn't really care. I kept that place, spotless. Mm-hmm. You know, I gave that place to him with upgrades and stuff that was better than I found it. You know, there was 3 German Shepherds living in that place before I moved in, and it was disgusting. You know, so but anyways, that's neither here nor there. But when I you know, as somebody that had 2 pit bulls and it was hard to find housing, I remember going through that. I specifically made a part of my pet policy that I don't have any breed restrictions. I don't have any breed restrictions. I don't have any weight restrictions. The only thing I'm not really too keen on that people pay a premium for is under a year old for puppies. Mm-hmm. That's like the one where it's just like, because the one time I allowed, you know, somebody under, that was the one time that, you know, that dog chewed up, you know, all the you know, brand new base molding or door casings.
Oh, wow.
Everything. I mean, I had to spend like $2,000 on door casings after that dog moved out. And every single time, the 2 times that I've not given a full security deposit back was pet related. 3 times. All 3 times were pet related. Either they were sneaking animals and I found out about it after they moved out, or damage, or just, you know, like one, you know, just a bunch of feces and stuff, you know, all over the deck that was like somebody's balcony below that was like leaking through. You know, just gross. You know, so it's, I think it's really, I get it. I get what they're trying to do. I just think putting it solely on the property owner it's just unfair. I honestly think it's just unfair and short-sighted.
Well, is that going to affect the insurance? At all? I mean, I've not read this law, so or this proposed law. You know, there's so many proposals that come out, but is it also making insurance require because they had these vicious breed things? And I remember I had a policy canceled on me because my tenant had Rottweilers. And so, you know, they had 2 Rottweilers and they were outside, you know, they just stayed in the backyard basically, but you know, insurance guy came by to do his inspection, and here's 2 Rottweilers, you know, barking their heads off at him, you know, and I got my insurance policy canceled, you know, because of a vicious breed, you know, that was on the property. So I wonder if they're going to require landlords to to allow all kinds of pets with no breed restrictions.
They call it right now, the way the law put it, this proposed bill that's in the assembly. They're saying that you can still have reasonable restrictions. That's obviously very broad. Yeah. And probably an insurance issue would probably fall under that. But the part that's kind of disingenuous to me is that they don't have to, you can't ask up front in the application anymore. Like, you have to accept, they're treating it like as we're discriminating against pets. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we are at all. We're like trying to make sure people are responsible with the pets. Sure. To be able to have one. Yeah. That's a totally different.
I mean, the other side of it, I guess, would be,
if they're going to require it, like, then they should have something that's like, you know, they have to go through some kind of puppy certificate or training, or make sure all their stuff. So I guess that's what people are telling. Is just, well, now the requirements are going to be even like that reasonable accommodation. Okay, well, I want a training certificate. I want to see all the vaccines, which I do. I do anyway. Yeah. But you got to set that barrier, I guess, higher now. Yeah. Or you spread it out against all your tenants, and then rent goes up. Sure. Or which, I mean, that tends to be the case in California, right? Or who knows? Yeah. Maybe this may be me wishful thinking, but maybe the idea is that we could put some responsibility back on these pet owners, and that you could basically say, I have insurance on the property, but it does not cover your animal. So if any kind of incident happens related to your animal, that is on you as the tenant, and it's not my responsibility as the landlord, because that's your animal. Yeah. So maybe there is some kind of, light at the end of the tunnel for that sort of thing where, because if any incident happens on a property, it's the landlord's fault, even if the tenant was blatantly doing it themselves practically, Oh, yeah, they could burn the house down and we're still, liable. Yeah, we're liable in some way. At the very least, I mean, you have to rebuild or do whatever. Yeah. Yeah. It's, it's crazy, but
at the end of the day, it's still, everybody talks about the horror stories of tenants, but most people I know that have properties, and myself included when I had my rentals, I only had a small percentage of people were actually a problem, and most of the problems I had to deal with were not that big of a deal. And I know I've heard these horror stories, and it's they're entertaining to say the least, but those are the exception. Definitely,
and I
not
think
the
a lot
rule.
of people. I think there's a lot of poor landlords out there that that put themselves into that position.
Yeah.
I let my friend move in, or
Oh, sure, family members.
It's always the sob stories of I let this person move in, or my neighbor, or I let them slide on rent, or whatever it is that just eventually it just overtakes them, and but they need to go back to landlord school.
Yeah, there's definitely at least a handful, probably at least a half dozen homes we bought to flip, where the owner was like a relative of the tenant and didn't have the heart to kick them out because they haven't been paying rent for the past 6 years or whatever the case may be.
They usually have 15 dogs and 7 cats or something.
And they're a hoarder, and it's just you're walking into a mess, but they basically would rather just offload the property and make it somebody else's problem. And as real estate investors, we're problem solvers, so that's what we do. We come in and we have to evict this person's daughter or a niece or somebody. It was always somebody.
Typically by that point it's been 2 decades of them living there rent free and just trashing the place.
Or just paying rent sporadically. Yep, it's but hey, that's those are some of the signs of distress you look for when you're looking for investment properties out there, because you can see it. Like some of these homes, you see them, and I'll tell you, 90% of the time the outside matches the inside. So if the outside's really trash, the inside's going to be trash too. And it's just look for that. Yeah,
it's usually not pretty on the outside, and then or trashed on the outside and pretty on the inside.
Yeah, it's pretty rare if you find that. But I have actually seen a house that was really bad on the outside. Had the old wood garage door that was just weather rotted to, every eave in the house had, dry rot on it. It was a wood shingled house. All, most of the shingles looked like they were just splitting. And it was like, I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to be walking into here? And I go in and I was like, actually, the house isn't that bad. Inside, they took fairly good care of it.
Yeah, you were shocked.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked walking into that one.
Holes in the drywall.
But the outside, it's like, okay, this house is going to fall apart from the outside in, but everything inside was like, they had like a good color scheme, like, they had some interior decoration, kind of skill. It was very funny, nice furniture, like,
sometimes
picked up,
sometimes. I was telling Caitlin, my girlfriend, couple, I don't know, within the last couple of weeks, and about this house that we bought in San Bernardino years ago. No power, no water. There was like, 16 people living in it. And, it was just crazy. Like how, they were going to the bathroom in buckets. And, it was disgusting in there. They hadn't had running water in like a year. And, but one of these guys, they'd walk out, and brand new Jordans.
Yeah.
They'd be walking down the street. You'd never expect that they're crawling into like a hole, basically.
Right.
And polishing their shoes. I guess it was wild to me.
Got to have your priorities,
where people put some of their priorities sometimes.
Right.
So you mentioned, I think we've talked about this way in the past. It always surprised me that you guys didn't do more rentals. I feel like most of the path is like, you wholesale, then you flip, then you buy rentals, and then you sail off.
Right.
And
that's so that was kind of when I first got into real estate, that was the idea. This whole BRRR thing, like that wasn't a term back when I got in the industry, but that was the idea. Was buy a house, renovate it, rent it out, refinance it, then repeat and do another one. The BRRR, cool little acronym, but that was the original plan. And I had gotten to the point, I bought my first rental property in December of 2007. So the market had already started crashing. I was buying in Moreno Valley at the time, and these homes were just pennies on the dollar. That first house I bought, I think I paid $120 for it, and that house would have sold prior to the crash for like $325, something like that. So, prices crashed even further than that. But it's like I got to this point in December where I was like, but the rents haven't gone down. In fact, rents have gone up a little bit, and so I'm like, I could actually cash flow on this house at this price. So I should just buy it as a rental. So that's what I did. I went to one of these REO auctions, in downtown Riverside. And, I was competing against like Bruce Norris. He was also trying to buy a bunch of properties. But, I ended up winning the auction on 3 houses at that particular auction. But these were reserve auctions, and the bank still had the right to say yes or no to your offer, essentially. So only one of them ended up getting accepted. The other 2, the banks didn't accept them and ended up selling for way less later on. So because I don't know, maybe,
hadn't really hit them yet.
Yeah, it hadn't hit them. I guess. I guess they thought, we've seen the worst of it already. It's been 6 months. It's going to be not much worse. Excuse me. But yeah, so I bought my first rental, and that was the idea. So I actually I got to the point where I had bought 4 single-family homes, and then I bought a triplex, which was my 5th property, basically. And I was refinancing with like conventional loans, just conventional Fannie Mae stuff. And I got to the 5th one, and when we finished it, we tried to refinance it, and we were having a hard time because there's a Fannie Mae FHA limit where you can only have like 10 mortgages under your name. 10 conventional mortgages. So, even though
DSCR?
What's that?
Does that include DSCR?
I'm not sure actually.
Okay.
It probably does. Remember. But I got to the point where I got to I had 5, and they said that okay, even though FHA and Fannie Mae and all that has this 10 mortgage restriction, no banks are actually going more than 4,
and they want you to have crazy reserves at that point.
Exactly. And so like I was working with a loan broker at that time, Ed Hoffman at Wholesale Capital in Moreno Valley, and he was like, I found a bank that'll take your loan, for the triplex. So we ended up getting that one refinanced, but he was pretty much like, I don't think you're going to be able to get another one, So I basically stopped looking for rental properties at that point, and at that time, this would be like 2011 or so. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe it's time I just start getting into commercial real estate. That's where the big boys play. I've always wanted to kind of get into that level, but didn't have the confidence necessarily because it's a whole different ball game, but I started going to conferences. I started going to all kinds of stuff for commercial real estate. And I ended up getting a 99-unit apartment building under contract up in Adelanto.
Yeah, nice.
And I was going forward, and I was about to close on it. We were a week away from closing. I had my money partner on that deal. We were about a week away from closing, and U.S. Bank decided they were pulling that financing. They weren't going to offer that financing anymore.
Wow.
Even though the property cash flowed like crazy, there was every single reason to do that deal from a bank's perspective, and they decided not to do it. So basically lost out at that point getting into that deal. And my money partner at that time, he was like, I got a lot of money sitting, and like I was kind of excited to get some money out there and into a deal. He's like, but I've really wanted to get back into lending. So, he basically talked me into becoming a hard money lender and running and starting his company. So,
really?
So I started his hard money lending company, having no knowledge in lending at all. I never wanted to be a loan broker, never wanted to get involved in lending whatsoever. But he talked me into it. So then he had, about $4 million to lend out at that time. And I was like, okay, well, so I started his hard money lending company, got him licensed, and, went out there and started lending. And it really changed my whole trajectory because, from there, I then started Rehab Loan Group. We started the club, then we started Community Restoration Group. We started Back Porch Homes. Like we went on this completely different path and completely got away from what my original intent was getting into this business. Yeah. So now my intent is, like we've had, for anybody that's been following along on my, real estate investing saga, we had Back Porch Homes, which was our tiny home manufacturing company. We ended up manufacturing mobile homes with a partner we had partnered up with. And long story short, it all fell apart. And, I had to declare bankruptcy. It's actually getting filed next month. And, business partner has to. The companies all had to file. It's done. Like we're basically, as of last year, it was completely gone. Like nothing we could really do about it. the business partner we had brought in ended up being not such a great guy, and
that's crazy.
Yeah, he was running, from what I understand, and this is all allegedly. I don't know for sure the facts or anything, but supposedly he was running a massive Ponzi scheme, and we're basically victims of that. So.
Jeez, man.
Crazy story. If you ever see me out there, I'll tell you the whole story sometime. I don't know if I want to blast it out on YouTube, but so I'm back.
You guys had a hell of a run there. I mean, that was we were all rooting for you. Y'all had, I think you had a lot of people behind you. So,
absolutely.
I'm sorry it turned out that way.
It was crazy because at the time of us closing, we had $48 million in sales in our pipeline.
Wow.
But and with it, you can't just start up a production line without an infusion of capital. And we needed $4.5 million to start the production line back up. Without that, there's no point. If you can't build houses, you're not making money. You're just bleeding. And that's what we were doing at that time. So, our capital partners in that particular deal couldn't come up with the capital. So long story short, we had to shut down not because we had the inability to sell or that we didn't have a good product or good people. We had to close because our capital providers couldn't provide capital. Yeah. That's what their job was to provide capital. So, but at this point, I'm going back to square one. I'm back to my original plan, and this time I'm going in commercial. I've been wanting to get involved in commercial real estate for a long time. I've got a good head on my shoulders as far as what it takes and everything at this point.
Absolutely.
Know a lot of people in the industry that do commercial real estate. I've met some really big players in the space that guys have billions of dollars of assets under management. Nice. And so what this really is now, and what I'm basically starting at this point, is a way for people that have smaller amounts of capital, and there's a lot of investors out there that have $50,000, and that's what they're kind of playing with. That's what they're investing with. But these big guys that are building skyscrapers and these massive, mixed use projects, where you have a mixture of commercial, residential, and industrial space, they don't take a guy with $50,000 as an investor. They have their investment minimums, and in a lot of cases they're $1 million plus. So if you want to play with them and get in those people's deals, you got to bring $1 million to the table. There's not a lot of people out there that have $1 million that they're willing to put into one particular deal.
Yeah.
So
where's your buddy?
That's where he's one of those people. He doesn't like to put that much money in one particular deal. Unless it's really short term, but that's that's another ball game. And he also doesn't love commercial, which is funny. But so that's where I'm going to come in. I know a lot of people with $50,000, $100,000, and we can spread out our risk across a lot of different deals, a lot of different asset types, a lot of different deal sponsors, which are the people that operate the deals, and we could truly be passive. Truly get involved in these limited partnerships. Where I'll put together a special purpose vehicle and we'll raise $1 million inside that vehicle, and then we'll be one spot on those people's cap tables for their big multifamily project or whatever it is that they're building. And
so if I'm following you correctly here, you don't want to necessarily go developing commercial or own commercial. You want to fund other people's commercials.
Yeah, fund people's other people's commercial deals, because I'm not a multifamily developer. I've never built a multifamily apartment, so number one, I wouldn't be able to get financing for it, because you have to have, there's an experience requirement when you're going to get financing for commercial real estate. And, I'm not that guy. I don't have that experience. So if I want to go just tomorrow, go buy a 300 unit apartment building, unless I buy it all cash, it's just not going to happen. So, but there's companies out there that, they buy 300 unit apartment buildings on a Tuesday. That's just what they do, So, and they operate these things nationwide. They've got teams of people that operate and keep an eye on all the different laws that are affecting the state. They got people that are keeping an eye on local economies and all kinds of different things. Why invest with me? Why would you want me to go buy the apartment building? Let's just invest with this guy. Let's just jump on his, on his wagon. And, that's a passive investment, because they put out monthly, sometimes, but if at the very least quarterly reports, and these reports are detailed, if you get a report from me, I'm one guy, my report's going to be thrown together as quickly as my book report was back in high school, because I got to get this thing out to people. I'm going to throw it, I don't have time, I'm a single dude. So it makes more sense to invest with people that are doing this on a massive scale already. Yeah. And those are the people I'm starting to get introduced to. I've met a lot of these guys already. There's some masterminds I'm a part of where these people are in there, or at least some member of their organization is a part of these as well. So, it's a higher level game, but the risk is actually a lot lower. Even in some of the deals we did, I mean, not every deal turned out great. There were deals we did that didn't work out, and investors lost money. Like, it's terrible. Like, it's the worst thing in the world, having to be in that position where you have to tell an investor we screwed up. We actually aren't as good as we thought we were. I mean, that sucks, but that's why I'm moving into this other thing.
It does, but that's, as much as it sucks, that is the risk of investing.
It is.
That is part of the game.
Yeah.
You don't, I'd like to say that we've never overtly, like, on the, if we line item things, like, we've never lost money on a deal. We've come close.
Yeah.
But even in our, like, on paper, we've never lost money on a deal. But but we have definitely over time, made the wrong decisions where we probably lost money, on that over the long term.
Yeah.
Where on opportunity costs.
Sure.
But there's I borrowed money from people, like, when we had like a profit split on things, and then the profit wasn't as high as we thought it was going to be. So the return wasn't as high as they thought it was going to be. And it was like, well, you told me. I'm like, dude, this is an investment. Like, here's everything. Like this is what happened.
Yeah. Here's what we hope
the sewer went bad, or like, whatever. I just didn't have the cash flow that I thought I was going to get.
Yeah.
Did it happen just because it happened 2 months after you invested the money?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't control this stuff.
Sure.
So,
there's, and
if
any number of things can happen.
The intentions were good, then, I mean, if willfully, defrauding somebody's a totally different story, but
absolutely,
but if the intent, if we said, this is what we think the deal is, and it didn't turn out that way, or the market shifted, or, and
that's,
it sucks, but it's part of it.
But that's, that's why that old adage exists. The whole, don't put all your eggs in one basket thing. So if you got 50,000 and only 50,000 to invest in a deal, I would recommend trying to split that up as best as you can. Instead of putting your only 50,000 into one particular deal. I mean, even if that deal seems solid and there's no way this thing could go bad, it's still just risky, and any financial advisor would tell you to do the same thing. It's, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an attorney or an accountant or anything like that. So, I'm not qualified necessarily to give you this advice, but if I could give you some advice,
absolutely.
As somebody who's been involved in a lot of real estate deals, a lot of transactions, it's best to just spread it out. Don't invest everything you have in one deal or one group, because sometimes that's, you find somebody that you really like, you might meet them at the club tonight, you might say, oh, I met this great person, they're doing all these great, short-term rentals or something, and sure, like, that's kind of a cool asset class right now. A lot of people are getting into the short-term rentals, but it's got some risk. It's got some hair on it.
People that have been burned by it.
Absolutely.
And or not did as well as they thought it was. I didn't necessarily get burned, but I didn't do as well as I thought I was going to do. I thought I had, and I was experienced as far as flipping and real estate and stuff. That was my first short-term rental, but I don't. If I hadn't had the experience I had, I think I would have been burned on that. But
I think a lot of people don't realize that short-term rentals, you're running a different business.
No, yeah,
you're running a hotel, essentially, a single-unit hotel.
Yep, with 30 different tenants a month.
Yeah,
not 30, but possibly 30.
Sure, you hope it's 30. One person every night.
That means 30 same-day turns. Those are
would be insane.
But
hey, hotels do it. They got maid staff. Like that come in and clean. Housekeeping staff. Like they're taking care of those. And I mean,
and I'm not saying there's not opportunity out there in short term still, but
there's tons.
Man, it's crazy to me how many I see for rent or for sale, and then I still get postcards 2 a week at least from the county saying this person's applied for a short term rental, around the corner from you.
Yeah, and I
mean I have multiple houses, so I get a lot of them, probably more than average, but still the amount that are, for every one that's fallen off, 2 more are popping up.
Yeah.
It's still, people are still out there trying to do it. So,
and I mean, a part of the big reason why we started Back Porch Homes was because we wanted people to be able to put these little ADUs in their backyard and rent them out on short-term rentals, because that's a huge market, and we'd be foolish not to build the product that people need, because not everybody wants to rent a room out of their house, and not everybody wants to rent out their whole house and just be gone for a week or something like that. But, if you live near the Coachella, area, I would highly recommend you consider letting somebody else stay at your house for that little time period where Coachella and Stagecoach are going on,
like thousands of dollars a weekend.
Yeah, it's insane how much you can actually get. For me, I'm like, it's worth it to take a little vacation somewhere, Plus, it's crazy out there.
Yeah, and I remember when you guys, that was the first time I think I had ever heard of what an ADU was.
Yeah.
When you guys had basically decided, I want to say that was like 2019?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there?
2018.
Where you guys gave the presentation at the club, and it was basically like all the rules are changing on ADUs, and we're going to build one.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, and everybody should buy one.
Yeah, everybody should. And lots of people did. We had orders. We had a lot of orders, But a lot of the orders we got were actually for the manufactured home product, because it turned out later on that ADUs are a lot easier to do if you're building it to the HUD code in California. We went into it thinking we could build them to the RV code, and in certain cities you can, but it's statewide, because mobile homes, which are built to the Title 25 code, have statewide preemption, which means they can be placed anywhere in the state of California with no restrictions. A city can't tell you no, basically. But you still do have to, show where you're going to place it. And there's still, you still have to show your foundation. There's requirements for those types of things. But you can place them anywhere, and they can be an ADU, I've heard, I don't know if this is true or not, I've heard that you can't have a manufactured home as a primary residence and a manufactured ADU. But that seems strange to me, so I don't know if that's actually true or not.
We ran into that. We had a house or a property in Lucerne Valley that had 2 mobile homes on it. It was like 10 acres, and it had 20 acres actually. It had 2 mobile homes on it, and we were trying to say one was the primary, one was the ADU, and the bank would not have it. They were just like, absolutely not. There's 2 mobile homes on it. You got to take one of them off. And we couldn't do the loan. Actually, the way that we flipped it and went to sell it.
Yeah.
And found that out that nobody would finance it.
Yeah.
And so we got lucky. We found a buyer that they put like half the money down, and we owner financed them the other half.
Oh, nice.
And then we went and turned around and sold that note.
Yeah.
At a discount.
See, there's always a way. You got to pivot.
Yeah. So but that is it is for whatever reason, it seems like an odd caveat to me to just, you can't have 2 mobile homes. Why not?
Yeah, we ran into one. So. It was a triplex property. It had 3 separate structures on it. One of the structures was a mobile home. And somebody in the past connected the deck, and it was actually like attached to the mobile home, and it was a site-built deck that was connected to the mobile home, and that became the issue because the appraiser had called it out on the appraisal report when we went to sell it, and we had to end up basically detaching this patio porch from the mobile home.
It's so odd. There's like these little things that pop up sometimes. You're just like, all right, if I got to undo the 6 bolts from this ledger, all right, whatever.
It's basically what we had to do, and the owner, the guy that bought it from us, he was a member of the club, and as far as I know, he still owns it.
Yeah.
But, there was a crazy story that happened later on when he owned it. I remember that.
Oh.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? I'll tell the story.
Sure.
I can't just dangle it out there. What's the crazy story? Come on. He owned it, and somebody was murdered on the property, but not a tenant there. This guy was just walking down the street, and I guess somebody like shot and killed this dude, and he died on the front yard of this property. He died there. So technically, there's a death on the property. So
wow.
Obviously, he had no intent of selling it, and you have to disclose that for 3 years. If there's a death on the property, but it's still kind of like
wow, jeez.
Usually you think if there's a death on the property, it was somebody that probably was living in it.
Try to explain that to somebody like, some dude got shot on the street. He fell over into the front yard over there in that corner.
Yeah, but it's Hemet. So that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, and everyone's probably just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So did you end up selling the rentals at some point?
So in order to start my hard money lending company, Rehab Loan Group, I needed to free up some capital. So I sold all my rentals at the best time in the market, 2013 and 14.
But you probably doubled it.
It's hard to quantify what would have been or could have been, because had I not sold those rentals, I wouldn't have started Rehab Loan Group. I wouldn't have. We probably wouldn't have started the club. The club probably wouldn't exist, because I would just be some landlord out there, owning rentals. Like, why would why would we start a club? But it's
5 more rentals.
It's hard to say. Like,
I'm a landlord.
The impact of doing it and me basically losing everything I had in my life. I think the impact is great, because the club itself is it's this only real beacon out here in the Inland Empire of like, this is the only club worth being a part of in this area that I'm aware of. I have not seen another club in this area that's worth being a member of other than the IEREIC. So, we created something awesome as a result of it. And, it really did just open up the doorways for more opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had so many different things thrown our way because of the club and because of doing that. So it's hard to say, but yeah.
Well, I mean, just in value though. I mean, when you made that decision at the time, because I remember my stepdad sold some stuff in 2013, and he'd bought it in 2008, 2009, somewhere, and it doubled.
Sure.
So he didn't know it was going to double again, in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
It could have gone down.
Yeah. I mean, had I known, I would have found another way to finance the starting of the loan company. Because, at the very least, if at the end of, Back Porch Homes' life, we could have, I would still be sitting on
a little fallback.
Yeah, some 7 rental units, 5 rental properties. I'd still be sitting on those, and I'd be still getting at least some cash flow from them. And at the very least, the appreciation is massive. Like what I sold them for, it was like it's laughable at this point. I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I actually sold these properties for that. But but the thing is, there was good equity in them. I think I cashed out several hundreds, thousands of dollars. Like to get out of those. So it was,
I've thought about, selling all mine and repositioning. Maybe to a different off the mountain.
Sure.
Even if I could, sell, 7 of them and pick 3 up, down the hill somewhere.
Right.
Save on maintenance.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know if I'll actually do it or not. But things change. Things change, and I know we talk about part of with the whole FIRE thing, the financial independence to real estate, and goal setting, and we try and get people to think about that stuff, so you don't get turned into something maybe you didn't want to back then, just because that's what happens. But things still happen. Opportunities present themselves that I never planned on owning or running this club. Right. When I first started doing real estate, I should be on a boat by now in the Mediterranean if I would have stuck to my original plan.
Yeah.
Which is still going to happen someday.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You're still shopping.
I haven't found the boat yet.
Yeah.
So, but it's life sometimes takes you in a different direction. So, and I'm sure you're 1,000 times stronger for it. And, with a ton of experience, and now you can say, when you're going to raise this money commercial, what are you talking about? Syndication or?
Yeah, basically, put the money into a special purpose vehicle and, invest it in these particular deals. Obviously there's SEC restrictions and there's regulatory concerns you got to navigate and everything. But, I've done it enough times at this point. I'm pretty comfortable with the whole process. And, I know a lot of great attorneys too that can write all this stuff up so that everything's ironclad. But, it's basically just syndicating. You're putting together a bunch of people, no more than 35 unaccredited investors basically into one particular deal. But if you have 35 people bringing in $50,000 each, that's $7 million. So, am I doing that math right? Yeah, I am. No, maybe I'm not. I don't know.
Seems a little high, but
yeah, it is. That is a little high. Actually, it's half of that. It'd be 1,750,000. Man, my math is just off today. What was I thinking?
So good. I don't even try and do it in my head anymore. I'm just like, okay, calculator.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just edit that out.
So we're human.
Yeah. But that's the thing is that. But the big guys, they have the same restrictions they have to live under. If they're trying to raise $100 million, and they're they can only take 35 non-accredited investors. Like that's not a lot of money. You're contributing almost not even 2% of the total raise, from those people. So you got to that's why they have these higher investment minimums, because they're like, we need $100 million. We can only have a certain number of people, and we can only have a certain number of accredited investors in some particular cases, and in some cases they have to have qualified investors, I think is what it's called. And those are different types of deals, and there's it's just what I've always really wanted to be able to do is provide access, with the club especially. And like with Rehab Loan Group, we wanted to provide access so that a new time, first time flipper could get a loan from us, and they wouldn't have to put any money into their deal on their own. If they got a good enough deal, they could come in with no money out of pocket.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to just make it available so that investors can and you can become an investor. I mean, it's just, hard money lenders, they usually require skin in the game. We had no skin in the game requirement. That was a big barrier we took away. And, and there was deals we did that were so fat, that we actually paid the borrower at the close of escrow when they purchased it. But they actually got money at the first escrow, because they had so much room in them. I haven't seen a deal like that in a while, because things are a little bit tighter now. But back in 2014, I mean, those deals were out there all over the place. And so, so the idea of this being able to give access to people that have a smaller amount of capital, but be able to invest in world-class type deals. Yeah. That to me it's just something I like, because I didn't come from money. I didn't come from some rich family that, just had this kind of a plethora of experience, to be able to jump right in, feet head first. I had to build it up on my own too. And so I want to be able to offer the same thing to other people, like to be able to you're an 18-year-old kid and you just happen to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, or you saw a podcast, or I want to work with you. Like, I like the entrepreneurial spirit. I want to encourage that. And just the idea of somebody who's an entrepreneur, like I was going through school, it was the worst experience of my life. I hate school, and I have my kids in school right now, and my daughter hates school, and I'm like, it sucks, I know, but she's a great student. She's got straight A's. I was not a great student, because I would rather, as soon as I got home, I wanted to go out, and go out and do something, and she's a lot more diligent than I am. Plus, she's got a mom that's a lot more on her about her homework and schoolwork and stuff.
It's not dad keeping those grades up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not contributing anything there.
That's funny.
It's all her, but that's that's the name of the game. I want to get into that, provide access so people can get into these world-class deals with top operators, and
So and you bring up a good point, is that we do a lot of deals at exchangers, and I listened to Goodwin do his lending class that he did this past weekend, and I think it was a great class. The people that took it got a total crash course in how to lend money. But there, some of the stuff that, like, the parameters that some of these lenders set to borrow money, I was kind of sitting there listening to some of it from the other room, or I was recording it and kind of editing on the fly back here, and there was some requirements in there that I was like, as a well-seasoned flipper, I wouldn't borrow money at those kind of restrictions or like requirements where, yes, I get it from a lender point of view that you want to, protect yourself.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like one of them was, if you default on one note that you have with somebody, then you default on all of them.
Yeah.
Which I get it, like, as the lender point of view, but it's not like the thing's secured by nothing.
Right.
It's secured by first position mortgage in a house that should have plenty of equity to weather a storm.
Yeah.
If somebody fucks up, screws up. Sorry, YouTube. So, and the other one, there was another one that was like, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but there was just a number of, I was like, no payments, no payments. So, like, for me, when I'm flipping something, or even when I'm just not even flipping it, just waiting to refinance it, like, to not have to worry, it's not a cash flow thing for me. I have the money for payments. He was saying, like, don't do any, I would never do no payments kind of thing. Yeah. And because you want to be able to put that money back to work immediately. And I get that as a lender too. I lend also. But at the same time, I mean, man, when I have, sometimes 7 different projects going on, even if I have, the cash flow is always straight. I'm never, like, in danger. But not having to worry about writing that check or just dealing with it at escrow when you sell it and just paying everything off is really nice.
Yeah. That's always been my whole thing. Like, the loan programs I always built myself. I took no outside influence on these things. I just know, as a borrower, when I was trying to borrow money, I knew what I didn't want to do. to the borrowers. And so, yeah, we never took payments. Like every loan we ever wrote was a payment free. You know, like your payments were basically built into your loan.
Yeah.
And
you are still, that interest is
you're still paying interest. Yeah. Like, I'm still making money as a lender on your deal, but you know, like, yeah, we took no payments. You know, we did away with like personal guarantees because I thought that was ridiculous.
That was the other one. That was the other one. I was like, really? Like,
you know, because you're taking the risk. And so me as the lender, I'm like, I'm comfortable enough doing this deal with you that if you screw up, I can take over the deal and I can basically...
you get the house.
Yeah, I can get the house.
Like, you don't have to get the house and 3 other houses.
Yeah.
But it's just...
Yeah, but there was other things that kind of came along with that. So, like, if I'm not getting payments, I don't know what's going on with you. So I had built this restriction in there where, okay, I need to be able to see some kind of progress every 2 weeks. So if there's no progress happening every 2 weeks, then I can actually foreclose on you for lack of performance. You know, and not only can I foreclose, I could also put your property into receivership, and I can actually finish your rehab for you with your fund control that we're lending you. I just have to be able to do everything in your best interest. So like, I can't make all the profit. I could actually, like, any one of my borrowers at any time could have just decided I want to stop doing this thing, and Todd's going to take over and finish it for me, and I get all the profit.
I like that. That seems like a more reasonable approach to that versus
it would have happened, you know, but
judging that because I'm not writing you a check every month that like I'm insolvent. Yeah, as the only barrier to, or the only metric to be judged on. It just some of it I was like, that's fine. If you want to lend money that way, I'm probably not going to be the guy that's borrowing it from you. Like that's
and it's tough. I mean, at one point when we were flipping houses, we had 27 flips going at one particular time. There was a moment where we had 27 houses that were flipping. To be able to make 27, payments, it's not to say that it wouldn't be impossible. You know, you go in QuickBooks, you just have to print out 27 checks. Yeah,
it's just another thing to worry about.
It's another thing you got to do, and it's and it does actually affect because, ask any real estate investor out there. I don't care how good or how good they are. At some point in time, one of their rehabs is going to end up costing more money, and they're going to have to rob from Peter a little bit to pay Paul to finish this project out. It happens to everybody I know. It's happened to us on a few different occasions, and in some cases it comes back to bite you. And as much as you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't rob Peter to pay Paul. Every investor I know who's ever gotten into any kind of volume has done it. And that's not to say it's right. I don't recommend you do it. If you can avoid it, you should always plan for contingencies. But, occasionally you got 4 properties going at the same time, and each one of them has to have their rehab budget go up, and that eats into it a little bit. So, you're kind of like, okay, I can call one of these payday advance, type lenders, and they'll make me a loan, but it's at a ridiculously crazy interest rate, and but we've all had to do it at some point, or you put everything on a credit card, or whatever the case may be. And I think a lot of lenders, the more seasoned ones, are familiar with that concept, and they just want to make sure those projects get done. Because the most risky day for a lender is the day you close escrow, when you close on that loan, because the property still needs a bunch of work, and you don't even know what ghosts are hidden in the closet yet of this property. Because sometimes you get into them, you're like, oh man, I didn't know they had knob and tube wiring. Well,
and the situation you're describing is, I'm sure, exactly what he's trying to avoid as the lender,
right?
But I think there's, I don't know, it just seems like there's a little bit of a give and take there.
Sure.
On money is pretty abundant.
Yeah,
like it's not. I would say it's harder to find the deal than it is to find the money.
I agree with you on that.
So it's like, even though it is their money and they're funding the whole entire thing, like, we are, the people that are doing the project are really like providing the opportunity to grow that money.
Sure.
Like, it's not as simple as they're just like, we have to have the money to make the deal work. Like, a lot of times we might have the money, we just, we're using it elsewhere. Sure. Or, so, like I said, I just think it's a little bit more of I think it's always a partnership with your lenders.
Yeah.
It's not I'm writing the check, so I call the shots, all the time. Like, right. There is some element of that, but there's also like, well, yeah, but we're bringing the deal. We're the ones making, you obscene interest on your on your money.
Yeah.
Like, so
Well, and
there's a tolerance of risk that goes with that. That's on both sides.
As a lender, again, you're operating a business. So, who's your customer? Your customer are your borrowers. You should treat them with, the type of respect that you'd like to be treated with, obviously. And so, and borrowers, sometimes they have problems. They have issues that's going on. I would always try to foster an environment of like open communication. So if they're having an issue, come to me, because like we can work stuff out. I think the problem is sometimes people will try to like, they run into a problem and they just want to like, not tell anybody, and they just want to, try to face the problem head on. But if you're inexperienced and don't know how to fix it, like I might have seen that problem 20 times, and I could probably tell you the right person to call. I could tell you, like, do this, and definitely don't do that. Like tell me your plan. Like I'll pick apart your plan, because ultimately I'm trying to protect the money myself. Like, because the money, it wasn't mine, it was other people's money, and it's like other people are funding your deals. I'm just sort of the middleman. I got to protect their money. At the same time, I got to make sure you perform on yours. And I want you to profit. I want you to make good money on your deal. Like that to me is the best thing as a lender. When you make good money on your deal, my money, the people that I got the money from, everybody's all protected. Everybody's in good shape. Like that's all I want as the guy in the middle there, is just to make sure that everything's going well for all parties involved. And so, in the cases where we had them go bad, it was because the borrower tried to solve problems on his own without the experience to solve those problems. One of them,
the wrong call.
Yeah, it's just
that's part of it.
Yeah, that's part of it. And that's the risk, and we always price that in. Our money, whenever people borrowed from us, it was expensive. We've always offered very expensive money, but it comes with a lot less restrictions. So I've always felt like as a lender, the answer should never be no to a loan application. It should always be, this is what I can do. The borrower doesn't have to accept it, but you can say, this is the best I can offer. So in some cases, it might only be 60% loan to value, because the deal's got a lot of, what ifs involved in it, something like that. But in some cases, if it's just a simple flip, I would often offer the most lending you could actually get. Like we would offer up to 76% of ARV. And we had a program during the heyday, 2014 through 2016, where we're offering up to 80% of ARV, which is insane. Like if you talk about that today, like nobody's touching anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, around that time, the ARV was going.
Exactly. Yeah. At the time we started, the house you were going to sell for 400 ended up selling it for 430. So, it was, I mean, those were the good times, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, and I know you mentioned to me, a couple, or last week or the week before. I mean, I know we've been talking about when you want to get into commercial and whatnot. But you're also kind of back doing some residential fix and flip loans, or
I mean, I still have all my contacts, and a lot of these people, like my old business partner, the one I started his hard money lending company for him, he still likes lending, so nice. I'm still offering his same program we always did, and he wants to get money out there, so he's got millions of dollars sitting waiting to go into projects that are that meet that loan program criteria. So I'm working for him for that, and then. Also, I'm working with another lender who does nationwide DSCR type lending. Nice. They do stuff all over the country, except for California. They don't do anything here. There's a few states they don't do anything in, and that's because those states have lending requirements. For like, if like for example, if you're gonna lend in California, you have to be an employee of if it's a California finance lender license that you fall under, you have to be an employee of that lender. So if you have an employee, you have to pay them minimum wage basically. So, so I'm an employee of my old lender, just to meet that requirement. And, I mean, but it's a way to pay the bills for the time being. 'Cause I have no cash flowing real estate. I have no other opportunities going on right now. So for me, it's just a way to pay the bills.
Yeah, nice.
'Cause I'm like everybody else. I got mouths to feed and all that other good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think you'll because I mean, you brought up John Schaub earlier, and part of his thing is, I mean, his whole thing really is like building wealth one house at a time, staying kind of lean and mean. Do you think you'd ever build out a small or large single family rental portfolio again? Or
maybe, I don't know. For me, like there's advantages to single family, and then there's advantages to multifamily. You know, like if the roof goes out on a multifamily property,
4 tenants paying for it.
There's more
Multiple
tenants paying for it.
Yeah.
But it's also a much bigger expense. You know,
Sure.
like you want to replace a roof now on a single family home. What are you spending? like $20,000 at most. For like a roof. In an apartment, you might be spending like $500,000. For a massive roof, depending on the size of the building, of course. But one single family home roof going, like leaking, and you got to get it fixed and get it done right. It's a lot less of a financial headache than $500,000 roof bill on a thing. But another thing too is, okay, let's say you come into a situation where you need to free up a little bit of cash. Well, if all you own are apartment buildings, you can't just to sell one of them. You're going to free up a lot of cash, as opposed to, I could maybe sell 1 or 2 houses right now to free up some cash. And then you're not killing your investment portfolio.
Yeah, and I don't have any apartment buildings, but I'm assuming the requirements to take out a second or you can't really take a HELOC or
they have those products. They just call them different things, like mezzanine financing and bridge loans. They have different terms for them. But
is that harder to? I'm assuming it's a lot more paperwork, a lot tougher to get through with some of that stuff.
The interesting
than the single family.
It's weird with commercial, because commercial real estate has nothing to do with emotions. Like the value of a single family home is dependent on how much people are willing to pay for it. So that's how you get properties in Malibu, California, where people are willing to pay, $1 million, to buy a shack, basically. Yeah. It's because the land they're sitting on. But with commercial, all the lending, everything's based upon the numbers. It's a business pure as it gets. So if the property's making money and you're making your cash flow, you're basically, the lender coming in is going to say, okay, if we provide you this financing, that's going to increase your financing cost to this. You're going to have to pay X amount of dollars per month. Looks like there's enough cash flow in the deal. Let's do it. It's more numbers based, but there are some experience requirements and stuff like that. And that's where, when you're going to go buying multifamily, you need to have like a certain level of experience. Like if you want to buy a 50-unit apartment building tomorrow, if you own 50 single family homes and you've been renting them out, that would qualify. That would be okay. They could say, oh, Rich knows what he's doing. Yeah. He's got the experience. But if you own 10 rental properties and you want to go buy a 25-unit apartment building, they're going to be like, you don't have experience. You need to be able to have at least that number of properties under your your experience sphere. So that's where you have to sometimes bring in somebody that can kind of be your experience partner.
Interesting.
And they can they're going to oversee, or they have a seat on the board or something like that. They can kind of help you meet those things. But commercial lending is it's very different. It's a lot more like business lending and a lot less like lending on a house, and the appraisals are a book. You don't just get a few page, newspaper form. You get this book basically that explains everything about the area, the state, employment. They go into super like crazy detail, and they're also really expensive. But
really?
But they're it's
like you said, it's all numbers.
It's all numbers.
It's just.
No emotion, and that's how lending is in general. Even if you're lending on a single family home, you're still saying, okay, well, it looks like the value of this house is, $500,000. I can lend X number of dollars. I'm going to charge X amount in interest. It's going to be for this term. Like, it's still a math problem, but it's just in commercial, like the whole industry is structured where this is just a business. It's not like, the emotion just isn't there, which is nice because I hate emotion in real estate. Like it's,
just give me the numbers.
It's I could never be a real estate agent, because I couldn't stand.
There's a lot of emotion there. Like you're just like, oh well, it's gonna be our forever home. Yeah.
And I hate this wallpaper. I'm like, take it out. Yeah. You can do that. It's your home.
It's $100.
Yeah, exactly. Or do it yourself. You can get a little blow dryer and remove it yourself. It'll be fun.
Exactly.
One of those weekend projects. Get a bottle of wine. Have some fun with it.
Exactly. Well, we got to free the computer up here. We're going to be going into exchangers here pretty quick.
Yep.
So Todd, if people want to get a hold of you, either it sounds like to borrow money or get in on some deals with you, lend, doing some commercial stuff.
Yep.
What's the best way to get a hold of you nowadays?
All right. The new thing is called Flowvestor, because you're an investor in cash flow. You just want to invest in cash flow. So my email is Todd, TODD, at flowvestor.com. Todd at FLOWVESTOR.com.
All right. Exactly how it sounds. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate you coming on. It's great to be able to sit down and talk to you. It's been a long time. So I appreciate it. This has been the Fire Chat podcast here at the Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club. We meet every single Wednesday, 2 times a week. We do exchangers from 12 to 2. We do our fire focus events in the evening from 6 to 9. And we actually tonight have John Schaub coming on the show, to the fire focus, to the fire center here. John Schaub's the #1 selling author on building wealth one house at a time. He's going to do a preview of his class that we're hosting also here. June 22nd and 23rd. It's a 2-day class here at the Fire Center in Riverside. So check that out online, IEREIC.org. You can also check out firechatpodcast.com and get on the show and come have a chat with me. Appreciate your time. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.